What was life like in the seminary back in those days
Well,
here in Houston?
yeah, it was fun in many ways. When I arrived, that was the first time I had ever been in a Catholic school. I had gone to public school all my life. I went to church,
Hmm.
but I had no experience of taking classes and religion or even theology or anything like that. When I arrived at St. Mary's Seminary, I think there were like 22 of us men in the first year, and I think all but two of us had already been in Catholic school, and all of them knew Latin.
Oh boy.
And I felt like I was way, way behind. And they were very well acquainted with church teachings and had classes in religion. And we had just, a kind of a basic understanding, but we were not as fluent in talking about the church as they were. But it took us a couple of years, but I think most of us caught up pretty quickly after that. So we had, like, in Latin, we had Latin classes every year for 4 years
Wow.
in those days, and then just dedicated myself to the studies. But we lived there on campus. In those days that we didn't go off campus for classes. All the classes were there for college level students at the seminary. And so we had intramural sports and other things that we did together. So it was fun overall, but created an atmosphere to study.
Uh-huh.
And I did well in my studies. And that's kind of what Bishop Markowski noticed and decided to send me to Rome to study later on. So
I can so relate to the story you're talking about with going to school with students who've had religion classes in the past. Because when my dad retired and we moved to the Philippines, I had to finish my high school out in the Philippines, and we went to a private school, and it was a Catholic school, and I was so far behind all of my classmates when it came to religion that I think I'd almost flunked out of school because of my religion grade, because I was so far behind. And then you said that Latin, was that something that was normally taught in high school or just for private schools?
Yeah, in Catholic high schools, Latin was taught. I think it was a standard part of the curriculum back in those days.
Wow.
If you went to a Catholic high school, you studied Latin.
What was it like trying to catch up with those classmates that already knew Latin and you're already at a disadvantage?
Well, initially it seemed, like a hill too high to climb. They could converse in, the declensions in Latin and what the words meant and all that. But we started out together. They had the same class as I did, and I picked up enough to catch up a little bit in the beginning, and then I really dedicated myself to it. And I think they were bored. Many of them were bored with Latin because they'd had that, and I wasn't. Once I got interested in Latin, and I was really, a student of it, and worked hard to master Latin, and I did quite well the last 2 or 3 years in Latin. But I think that was kind of the motivating factor. Initially, I was way behind, but afterwards, I was determined to catch up, and I think I passed most of the people by the third year in it, so it worked out fine.
So we've had some deacons in here, and we've had Father David Michael, who's a priest, of course, and they talk about what life was like in the seminary with pranks and hijinks and stuff like that. Was it the same back then as well?
Probably so, maybe worse.
Worse.
Because I know some of their stories now, because that's where I live. But
Yes.
We couldn't leave the seminary other than to go see the doctor for, a major, visit or whatever it was, or shot. And we only went home at Thanksgiving and Christmas and just a brief break, excuse me, brief break at Easter. And so that's where we were. And so we couldn't move out. And that's created opportunities to play pranks on one another. One of the favorite things that some of the guys would do, because we didn't have air conditioning in the dormitories, but we had ceiling fans. And so if somebody was wanting to get back at you, they could go in your room, because most of the time we didn't lock our rooms.
Uh-huh.
They would put talcum powder up on the blades of the attic fan. I mean, the ceiling fan. And the first thing you did after supper, when you came in, it was dark, you would flip on the fan to get some air moving, and you would be covered with a cloud of talcum powder.
The entire room.
That's right. It wasn't a fun thing to clean up either.
Did that happen to you?
It never happened to me, but it happened to some of the guys on my hall. So,
did any pranks happen to you?
I had a friend. Well, he ended up being a friend. He's a classmate of mine. We had some disagreement. I forget what it was. So he decided to put baseball bats in my pillowcase. And so I went to bed that night and plopped down. And as soon as my head hit the pillow, it hit the baseball bats. They were carefully disguised there. So, but I got back at him.
What did you do to him?
Well, we had had some golf balls there. People would hit the golf balls out on the field.
Uh-huh.
So I took golf balls and put it under the post of his bed, the 4 posts. And so I just jacked up his bed on the golf balls and leaned the bed against the wall, so you couldn't tell. When he got in for a nap one day, then he turned over, and then the bed rolled off the golf balls. So he thought he was, an earthquake had hit or something, but he knew who did it. And so we continued. I don't know all the other things we did to one another, but probably after a year or so, we decided we needed to become friends rather than do these things to each other. And we're the best of friends today. He's still living in poor health, but he's up in the Diocese of Austin. He was ordained a priest. So
okay,
but we became the best of friends after that. So.
Do you ever talk to each other about those pranks that you did to each other?
We do, and we called each other probably about once a month now. He's been retired for a good while, and like I say, he's in poor health. He doesn't help out in any. He used to help out in a nursing home, but he can't do that anymore. He just has to be at home. So, but he's done well.
That's good. That's good. So, any other pranks was it off limits to prank the priests back then?
Yeah, we didn't have the courage to do that. We might end up outside the seminary, like if we did something like that.
Were they much stricter in those days?
Pretty strict, yes. Because first of all, you came in, and we knew that the rector of the seminary and the faculty, their word, was law, and their recommendation to your bishop, would determine whether you would go on towards the priesthood or not. So we were careful about what we said and didn't say to them. Yeah.